Hi, we're Mark and Christine Bonn. Our film is Robert Shields' My Life as a Robot, and this is Dude.
Welcome. So I know we talked a little bit off camera, and I would like to repeat myself and yourself some, because there's things that were said that I want others to hear.
Yeah.
So repeating myself, I'll say that when I first started watching this project, I didn't think I knew who Robert Shields was. And then instantly listening to him and seeing, I knew who he was. I was like, I know this. I know it was Buster Keaton, obviously the robot. I was a child of the 70s and 80s, so I saw that before I saw him. And then one of my favorite moment is the variety show, where and ironically is where you're seeing him as a character speak, which he had not done. And I realized, I remember my parents watching that in the 70s, the CBS skit. So yeah, I knew him without realizing I knew him.
It is a trip down memory lane for some folks, and yours was a repressed memory.
Right, yes, very much so.
But that's the fun thing about coming out of the theater and having people come up to us and say, you transported us back in time,
Right.
you know, and no matter what different ages, and then the whole thing, well, we can get to this later, as far as the young kids that know who he is, that struck us. We had no idea.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And they do the same thing where they go, Shields and Yarnell?
Yeah.
As opposed, and I think that's the thing, is we have Robert Shields, because unfortunately we
Right.
lost Laureen about,
Right.
12 years ago
Yeah.
now. And I think a lot of people don't go Shields and Yarnell.
Right.
They hear Robert Shields. And so once you say Shields and Yarnell, that's when they say, wait a minute, you know?
Hey, thank you, YouTube.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And it was important for us to have Laureen's voice in this film, and we were lucky to find certain footage that really had her speaking and telling her story and everything what was going
Because
on.
it was such a pivotal part
Yes.
of his life, that
Yes.
part.
Exactly.
So I would like to ask how, and I know this was 10 years in the making, but how did you come to this project? How were you introduced to Robert Shields as a documentary subject?
Well, it's funny because it is almost like your repressed memory story. We were at an art show that happens every year in our town. Actually, it happens twice a year, Memorial Weekend and Labor Day weekend. And we happened to see this booth of art, and we both walked in. We both loved the art.
It's beautiful
Yeah.
art.
And
Yeah.
I didn't recognize Robert.
Okay.
Chris recognized Robert.
Okay.
So we
And he's talking away, and I'm like staying quiet because
Like,
I'm gonna geek out. I am still gonna geek out.
So he's such an inquisitive guy, so we asked what we did. And at the time, we do short films, short documentaries on World War II veterans.
Okay.
So he was like, oh, you should enter Sedona. It's a great festival.
Yeah.
And so we had a great time talking. We walk away, and Chris goes, do you know who that was? And I'm like, yeah, he was a good artist. He's like, no, that was Robert Shields from Shields and Yarnell. I'm like, oh. So we went back down the next day, and we brought a couple of DVDs of our films, and we had a great conversation then, because then I knew who he was.
Yeah.
Bought some art. We went to Sedona. We entered. We got in. We won Audience Choice Award for Vicowden Story, which was about
They're all shorts,
Okay.
because we wanted them to be for schools.
Schools.
Yeah.
So-
Right.
She was a woman's Air Force service pilot. Great story. Anyways, we see Robert then on the next festival, and I'm like, dude, thank you. That was so cool.
Yeah.
And he was like, we start talking. I go, if you ever think of doing, and I don't finish the sentence. And he goes, yes, I saw your films. I love them. I want you to do our story.
Wow.
And I was like,
Wow.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
we're
Well,
doing
then
that.
you have to.
Yeah.
You don't say, let me think about it and get back to you.
Exactly.
No.
So, and this is our first feature, and I love what you guys do as far as being new filmmakers, and I never thought to enter because we had 3 films before this.
Right.
But this was our first feature.
Right.
And I'm so glad we were eligible to be involved in this
Yeah.
because of that, because
It's a whole different beast.
Yeah,
It is
I'm sure.
not sure if I'll do another feature.
Right.
It was
know?
a lot of work.
Intense.
And it's just so much, but I love seeing it.
And he has so much to share. I mean, it's not. I mean, I'm sure it was a feature that probably it could have been a 2-parter. I mean, given the life that he has lived.
Exactly. And we've tried to keep it. We've got it down to 87 minutes. It was 97 minutes at one point, and I was just like, we got it. Boom, 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 and
Well, it moves. I mean, again, because there's so many distinct eras of his life too. and each are different, building upon the last.
Yeah.
It's like chapters in a book. You just move into the next one.
And
next
what's
one.
so crazy about that is when we first started editing was trying to figure out what happened when.
Right.
Because so much happened in like a 4-year period.
Right.
That you're going, okay, wait, did that happen before this? You know, and there were things actually that because we didn't have footage or anything he joined the circus when he was 18.
Yeah.
And we didn't have anything
That's why I was
that we
going
could
to ask
cover.
about the footage that you didn't have, though, of the street performing, for instance, from the 70s.
That was just amazing. Steve Binder, who's in the film,
Yep.
After the
producer,
interview,
yeah.
he takes us back to his garage and he goes, I'm going to let you kids take everything on that shelf. And this is this giant shelf full of stuff. And I'm like, what?
wow.
He goes, this has been in my garage for 48 years.
Yeah.
In California.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, and I'm seeing film reels.
Southern California.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'm like, oh, those are gonna just disintegrate
Yeah.
when I open up the tin. And I open
Yeah.
the tin, it was like, they smell a little bit, but I
Yeah.
think they'll be fine. We took them to a place and had them transferred, cleaned and transferred to
Wow.
ultra high def, and so amazing. to
Yeah.
have that.
Well, seeing those crowds, I think, and hearing about people who would come out at lunchtime just to watch him,
Yeah.
and you really get what a big deal he was. Just that you couldn't get from someone just talking about it. You had to see it, and you
Yes.
had to see him performing at that
Yes.
time.
Because
Yeah,
honestly, when you
agreed.
try to pitch this film, it's about a mime
Right. Right.
that performed in a courtyard.
Yeah.
yeah, basically.
I'll
But we
tell-
went to San Francisco, of course, to
Sure.
to film some of this, and we ran into so many people that were like, "I remember him. I used to go down and
My
watch
mom
him."
would take me
watch.
down and
Yeah.
all these different
It's-
people that was
And
just
maybe
like,
hadn't thought about that in decades.
Exactly, exactly.
So an irony here is that he is an amazing storyteller. You know, so here's an incredible performer without words.
Right. Right.
And his performance without words resonates in a way that if you add words, it would lessen it. But when he tells a story, you're riveted.
Yeah.
You were riveted. And whether it's the story of in his life, early life, where despite his father thinking he was living on the streets, success after success after success, and then when things turn, you're trusting him as a storyteller.
and that's and knowing Robert for as long as we have, that was the interesting part because he really truly opened up. Because the very first time we interviewed him, he goes, "Oh, you know," and then I went bankrupt, but it was
Yeah.
the best thing that had happened to me, you know. And it's like, and then as we got to know him more and more, it's like we need to revisit
Get
that.
there, yeah.
And then one of the things that I kind of enjoy about this film is the style I chose. The way I edit is I have a lot of good voiceover friends. Actually, Joe Cipriano is the
No way.
voice of Herb Cain in this film. So I could have a professional voiceover transition everything. I like to have everybody in the story tell the story.
Yeah.
So you'll notice that, you know, it could easily just said, and then tragedy hit.
Correct.
You know, and
No, you need people to.
his
tell
sister
it.
saying,
Yeah.
you know, he put all his eggs in one basket. And, you know.
Well, and there were instances or little instances of foreshadowing of that, of him, you know, of getting the warnings from the father or the sister, like, and
Yeah.
you know, even as he tells the story later, that he didn't want to hear that. He's like, no, I'm charmed. Everywhere I turn, someone wants me. Like the guy who owns the wax museum, you know, he sees him
Yeah.
for like 10
Seconds.
minutes, and he's
Yeah.
like, I'm hiring
hiring
you.
you.
Yeah.
You know, the first mime he meets who mimes like, come with me.
Exactly.
And now I mean, so he was living a charmed life.
It really, really was. And then also, when you think about how far it went, in the 70s, they were making $500,000 a year.
Yes.
Which in today's
Yeah.
terms, and it was just, and they were.
They weren't
working-
even working 7 days a week.
No.
It was
Yeah.
like the weekend kind of thing, and they made that much.
It's just crazy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then to go, boom,
Gone.
nothing.
Yeah.
But I think it's made him who he is today, and it's just, he's an amazing man.
Well, I think it makes him more relatable. I think because how many of us have lived the utterly charmed life without setbacks?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for him to have that, and we had talked off camera. I'd love to talk about it now on camera. That as you just alluded to, he kind of brushed over the bankruptcy part.
Yeah.
Earlier in the film, we learn about the divorce with his
Right.
life and business partner that they kind of hid behind artifice. but you can't hide behind a bankruptcy and what happened, and you went back to him and said, we need to talk about this more.
So we ended up, I was almost done with the film, and it was October, and I was like, I need to have a little more clarification. And we we went to Sedona, and we just sat with Robert, and I go, tell me more about it. And he really opened up, and it just, I can't imagine what he went through.
Right.
Because it was a time where he was the biggest thing in that town.
Yeah.
He had a restaurant, 4 or 5 galleries, a radio station,
Yeah.
which we didn't even go into because it was like, how do you explain that? And it all went under.
Yeah.
And he lost everything.
Like this too.
Yeah.
It wasn't, you know,
And
he
he'd be in
immediately.
the supermarket, and people would talk about him and give him guff.
Yeah.
You know, so he actually even moved out of Sedona to a town adjacent, and it was just wow.
And he says he went from the man everyone wanted to be near to a pariah overnight.
Yeah.
So you screened the film in Sedona. He was there.
Yes.
What was that like?
That was crazy because before this whole thing happened, 4 people had seen the film, and those were 4 of them were friends.
Right.
So we're first off kind of going,
Is it
wow,
good?
is it? Yeah.
Yeah, is it? Yeah.
And Robert had only seen up until a certain point. So up until where we kind of did the pickup.
Yeah.
So we had 700 people there, which that was amazing.
Yeah.
An odd thing happened, just a side note. When we got to Lorraine's death, and we talk about that, Robert got up and walked out, and I thought, oh boy, I hope it's not I did something wrong or whatever.
Yeah.
Asked him later, he goes, I started crying, and I realized I got to get out of here because I'm crying right now.
Yeah.
And it hit him so hard, and I think seeing it on a big screen and actually seeing that.
It hits the viewer hard. Hit me hard. I'll confess, because I was watching it. I was watching it on my laptop. About halfway before you mentioned that she had passed away from the aneurysm, I'm realizing I hadn't heard her talk, and so I paused it and I looked, and I was like, oh no, and then it come back. So I was prepared for the moment that Robert was not prepared for,
right.
but it was still no less heart-wrenching.
Because they'd still be doing that act today.
Yeah.
Because that's the neat thing is Robert will still do the falls, and I
Yep.
tell him, please don't.
You're getting older. You can't get up so easily.
That's
anymore.
not real
I
old.
stretch, and he's amazing. I wish I
He
was.
does seem to be in amazing shape.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
So, but it was nice. The end of the Sedona screening, 4 different people came up to me and said, I was one of those people that said something to him in a store, and I feel awful. And I go, tell him. And it was nice. So at least that. was
Oh
something.
gosh, that's amazing. And how did he react?
This changed his life.
Yeah.
He was. You'll see.
In a way that the success couldn't. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think he feared any of the success happening again because everything that had gone down with all that. But he's going out to dinner now and doing happy hours with friends.
Oh.
And it's amazing because it looked like he was just going to be a guy that just stays at home all the time and paints.
recluse.
And he's amazing. He
He
puts in the
is.
hours.
Yeah.
I got him to wear a mask because he was doing a lot of stuff without.
Slacking
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
stuff without.
Well, how he describes his approach to painting, you have it. It's early in the film that you have it, where he's talking about the paintbrush being the same extension of his limbs. Was like, oh my God, I've never heard an artist articulate it that way.
And the way I was going to cover that with some art,
Yeah.
but the way
No, you
he
wanna see
does
it?
it, I was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like, oh my gosh,
wanna see it.
he's miming
Yeah.
right there,
Yep.
Yes.
and he's not realizing he's just
Yep.
I'm Italian, I talk with my hands.
Yeah.
He's doing it
No,
beautifully.
he's-
Yeah.
Just like his underwater miming too was like,
isn't that-
he's underwater. Like I see it. He's
Yeah.
it's like my mind is playing tricks on me because I'm convinced he's underwater.
It's so true.
And that's what kind of bring it into the popping guys, Popping John
Yeah.
later in the film. That's what brought him into the whole
Yep.
thing is because he goes, I would see someone doing something. I'm like, how are they doing that? That's magic.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And that was what brought him into that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of fun with the end of the film that Robert all of a sudden had all these poppers
Yeah.
that we had no idea
Yeah.
that loved him.
Well, it's an amazing coda, right?
Yes.
It's like Oh, it's coming full circle
Right,
now, and
exactly.
and in a way where he had talked about his influences as a child, you're seeing how he has influenced others.
You
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
Thank
and
you.
so
Thank
unexpected.
you.
Yes. So unexpected as well
Yeah.
that he had no clue
Yeah.
that this was
Well,
going
that's kind of
on.
the best
He was
reveal, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Because he was kind of like,
Yeah.
well, they asked me to come. I have no idea.
But they always ask
Should
me,
we
and I always say
go?
no, but
Yeah.
maybe I'll go. And that was a weird day because Robert flew in, he stayed the night, and the next morning we get up and we go to Griffith Park
Right.
to do this Poppers picnic. We
Yeah.
have no idea what to expect.
Right.
And
Not
he
a
was
clue.
nervous because he's like, what if they don't know me or they want to
Right.
battle? I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
You know? And it was so much love. It was unbelievable. And we had a hard time leaving.
Yeah.
It was really kind of neat.
Well, it
I'm
would
like,
have been like if he had met Buster Keaton as a
Oh
as
my
a young
gosh,
man.
you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
It's-
yeah, just amazing. Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. It's a fun film.
It's an
and-
amazing film, and I'm
Thanks.
glad you allowed it to. I'm sorry for you all. It took 10 years, but I'm glad you allowed it to do this and be a feature because it deserves to be.
The universe
feature.
makes things happen
Yeah.
to be whatever, and when you try to fight it, it's just trouble.
Yeah.
So we just started going with the flow, and I'm glad we did.
Yeah, me too.
Thank
me
you.
too, and our and the festival goers will be too. I'm very excited for you guys to be again in an audience with people who are either becoming reacquainted, whether it was a repressed memory like me, or just say, oh my God, there he is. So it's great.
Yeah. Thank you.
thank you.
And yeah, see it with an audience if you can.
Yes,
Because it's so much
absolutely.
fun to be in a group.
Oh, I will. Now that I've had the experience one way, I definitely want the audience
It's
experience. So,
magic.
good. Well, thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.